Chapter 16. The school was without Fei now, and I had stopped going to the rehearsals. My classmates stared at me as though I were a dinosaur. Most of them hated me because I was arrogant, pompous, and too much of an artistic star. In elementary school, they would have gotten together and beat me up, but times had changed. I was the big guy, sitting in the back seat, angry, arrogant, a fallen star of yesterday, a hostile sight to avoid. They cold-shouldered me. The rest of the school carried on as if I weren't there. I watched them disdainfully and quietly. A few smaller guys in class still speculated that I had dated the most beautiful girl in the school's performing troupe. They winked at me when they saw her pass our classroom window. I said nothing and kept them guessing in order to maintain the last ounce of respect I commanded among the students. Dia was one of the guys who warmed up to me after he saw the vacancy left behind by Fei. He was a thin fellow who seemed to jump rather than walk. He had monkey ears, and his hair was always a messy lawn that seemed as if it hadn't been mown for ages. He lived in a poor village 10 miles west of Yellowstone and walked to school every morning at sunrise, returning home at about 8 each night. He was one of those kids known around the school as walkers to distinguish them from the students who bunked at the school dorm. He was the only person I knew who made thicker and longer tobacco rolls than he, and he used old newspaper to roll them. Sometimes, when he ran out of old newspaper, he would run around school looking for any scrap paper he could find. This thin little guy carried a large school bag with him during the course of the day. Most of the space in it was taken up by the 2 cold meals he had to carry around, and the rest was divided up equally between books, a bag of foul-smelling homegrown tobacco, and an ugly pipe made from a twig. His nicotine addiction was legendary. He was the only person I knew who smoked before and after each meal and stopped halfway to squeeze in another thick, long tobacco roll. The more time I spent with Dia, the less I felt like smoking at all. He was a great example of what happens to smokers. At the age of 15, he had a chronic cough and spit up sticky green stuff like an old man of 90. His lungs wheezed loudly through his bony chest, outlined by countable ribs. His teeth were dark in front and back, and he had a pale, lifeless look. The only gleam in his eye came from the reflected light of the matches with which he lit his rolls. "How can you smoke like that?" I asked once after we became better friends. "Look who's talking." Dia stared at me puzzled. "What's wrong with me?" "Well, the tobacco and the old newspapers you're using will kill you soon." "I'm not dying any time soon, Da. Grandpa rolled his first roll at the age of 4 and he's still kicking. He taught Dad to smoke at the age of 5 and he's still breathing. I didn't smoke till 7. The Dias are living legends. We'll live on." Every morning he made his first stop at my house after his 10-mile walk. I treated him to some hot tea. He would sneak to our backyard for a smoke and then reappear refreshed. Then we walked to school together. In the afternoon, he played with me for a while before the long journey home. Some weekends, I would offer him my bunk bed so that he could stay for a night. He fought the invitations valiantly, but in the end, never refused the offers. When he slept over, we talked about our lives and future late into the night. He wasn't a demanding guest. All he required was a chair to step on so that he could climb to the attic windowsill like a cat and smoke in the open air while staring at the bright stars. The midterm exams came sooner than I liked. It was the first time I was paying attention to them. It had been a breezy school without serious tests for years. Now that concept was arcane. The good students in class applauded and chatted excitedly about how they were going to review courses and score well. The losers put their heads on the desk and drummed the desktops, hating every word uttered by the good students. The teacher enthusiastically answered questions that the good students raised, and even threw a smile or two when it came to the pretty girls in class. But when I raised my hand and asked which English book we would be tested on, the whole class burst into uncontrollable laughter. It was a big joke. The good students huddled together and laughed. Enjoying my humiliation, the teacher leaned back in his chair. "What do you think?" he said slowly, tossing the chalk in his hands. More laughter. "I don't know." "Since when did you become interested in tests? Shouldn't you be in rehearsal at this time of day?" He looked at his watch, smirking. "For your information, it will be a book 4 that you will be tested on. Are you sure you have book 4 in your possession?" Continued laughter. I felt Dia's eyes on me. He was the only one feeling sorry for me. The rest of them probably thought I was a drunk, just waking up to the glaring sunlight. I was human garbage in their eyes, victimized by changing times, with no idea of how to pull myself out of the hole I had sunk into. The talents I had, playing the flute and violin, were talents of yesterday. Now it was college, and whoever could jump through the hoop and be that lucky 1% to go on to college was the hero of the day. I still stank with yesterday's staleness. Most of them were happy to see me fall on my face, hoping I would break a few bones in the process. The tests offered scant surprises. I stared at each paper for a good 5 minutes, scribbled down something, and turned them in. I answered half the questions on the math test with ease, but the rest looked like a foreign language. And I only did 1/3 of the physics test. History and geography were the hardest subjects to guess on, and whatever English I had mastered from the professor, a secret, was a mere scratch on a pyramid. Chinese was the only subject I excelled in. I had studied classics with my grandpa, and the end of the week of tests, I felt as I had gone to the Olympics and ended up sweeping the floor after everyone had left. I was sad, angry, and lost. What was I going to do with my life?